Within the bodybuilding community, one question that always sparks heated debates is, what was the best era of the sport? Although there are incredible bodybuilders today, for many fans, the so-called golden era was and will always remain the pinnacle of bodybuilding. If we take a closer look at this opinion, it makes a lot of sense. During that time, bodybuilding found the perfect balance between aesthetics and muscle mass, without the excesses we see today. Much of this balance was due to the meal plans followed during the 70s and 80s. Processed foods were practically non-existent, and supplements were just starting to gain popularity. Bodybuilders of that era followed a much more traditional diet based on real food, and few adhered to the so-called fad diets that dominate the scene today. Today, we're going to take a look back at the golden era, the period that crowned legends like Arnold Schwarzenegger, to understand what their diets were like back then. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss content like this. Now, before we begin, I need your help to keep the channel going and continue bringing quality videos. If you enjoy my work and want to see more content like this, consider becoming a channel member. It won't cost you much, but it makes a huge difference so I can keep producing videos you love. And of course, don't forget to like, turn on notifications, and subscribe to the channel. This helps YouTube share our content with more people. Also, I have a goal to reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I'm counting on your support. Now, grab your pen and paper, because today's content is loaded. Let's dive in. You are correct, Ronnie Coleman is not an active athlete currently. Although his career was extremely relevant, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, he is now retired. I'll adjust the text to reflect this correction. Compared to today, the meal plans followed by bodybuilders of the golden era were remarkably different and, in many ways, unique to that period. While modern bodybuilders prioritize a high-carb diet, consuming thousands of grams per day to sustain their intense workouts, the diet of the golden era focused on much lower carbohydrate intake. In fact, their meals were predominantly rich in healthy fats and high-quality proteins. If we compare athletes like Ronnie Coleman, who competed in the 90s and early 2000s, we see that his diet was based on a large amount of carbohydrates to maximize performance and muscle volume. However, in the golden era, this wasn't the focus. The balance between aesthetics and muscle mass came from moderation and careful nutrient selection. Bodybuilders like Arnold Schwarzenegger and his contemporaries occasionally included carbohydrates such as oats or potatoes in their meals, but these sources were not as frequent as we see today. In fact, their diets contained much fewer carbohydrates compared to modern bodybuilders. Instead, they relied heavily on fats and proteins sourced from foods like red meat, eggs, and dairy. It was common to see these athletes consuming large portions of beef, like burgers and steaks, which provided a solid protein foundation for muscle building, while fats helped maintain stable energy levels throughout the day. If we take a closer look, we could say their approach was quite similar to what we now know as the ketogenic diet. They consumed abundant protein and derived their calories from natural sources, minimizing the use of supplements and keeping their diets based on whole, fresh foods. This type of nutrition helped create balanced, defined, and muscular physiques, something that, for many, truly defines the golden era of bodybuilding. Besides being aesthetically pleasing, these physiques had a natural look, without the exaggerations we see in bodybuilding today, where the pursuit of extreme size sometimes compromises body harmony. This more pure approach to nutrition certainly contributed to the golden era's legacy as the peak of bodybuilding. Vegetarian bodybuilders during the golden era were extremely rare, with Bill Pearl being the most notable exception. Most successful bodybuilders of that time followed a meat-heavy diet, consuming it several times a day and in large quantities. It wasn't uncommon for their breakfast to include beef patties alongside eggs. In fact, eggs were incredibly popular during that era. Nearly all bodybuilders of the golden era consumed a considerable amount of eggs throughout the day, often whole, which contrasts with the modern practice of prioritizing only egg whites. Cheese omelets were a constant in their meals, ensuring a high protein intake. In addition to beef and eggs, bacon was also a common choice for breakfast. However, One food that stood out for its popularity among these athletes was cheese, especially cottage cheese. As a slow-digesting protein source, cottage cheese was a staple in several meals throughout the day. When we think of modern bodybuilding, we associate the diet with the consumption of rice, sweet potatoes, and other carbs, but that wasn't the case during the golden era. Back then, the focus was on proteins and fats, with a very limited intake of vegetables. Broccoli, carrots, and beans were rarely part of these athletes' meals. Similarly, fruits weren't a significant component of their diet, as the focus was on more energy-dense sources rich in protein and fat, ensuring a well-defined, voluminous, and balanced physique without excess. Occasionally, golden-era bodybuilders would include fruits in their meals, but they didn't play a central role in the diet. Fruits were consumed sporadically, more as a secondary option rather than a regular nutrient source. Ultimately, animal meats dominated these athletes' menus. Beef, in particular, was the star, consumed in large quantities, often in the form of steaks, which were the foundation of many meals. Additionally, chicken, turkey, and tuna were part of their diets, providing essential proteins, but nothing compared to the popularity of beef. On the other hand, the consumption of fish, like salmon or sushi, was much rarer. Unlike modern diets, where fish is valued for its healthy fats, golden-era bodybuilders hardly included it in their daily meals. In summary, the main foods consumed during the golden era of bodybuilding were meats, eggs, and various types of cheese. Cottage cheese, in particular, was a favorite due to its excellent slow-digesting protein, helping to keep the body supplied with amino acids for long periods. Other types of cheese were also consumed, usually as a complement to main meals or in quick snacks. Fruits, when consumed, appeared as a light salad, but they weren't an essential part of these athletes' meal routines. Surely, you're wondering, what about protein shakes, which are so common today? Back then, protein shakes weren't popular, partly due to the lack of quality options and the unpleasant taste many presented. Additionally, the high cost of available supplements made it difficult for most bodybuilders to regularly incorporate shakes into their diet. During the golden era, bodybuilders primarily relied on whole foods to meet their protein and nutrient needs. The use of supplements was still in its early stages, and many athletes preferred to stay away from these products, opting for a simpler, more natural diet. Foods like meats, eggs, and cheese provided all the necessary nutritional needs, and this real food-focused approach contributed to building the impressive physiques that define this era. The balance between aesthetics and functionality was evident, and the sculpted bodies of this time continue to be a reference in bodybuilding to this day. So, with such a simple and natural food-based diet, you might be wondering, how did these bodybuilders achieve such impressive physiques? The answer, without a doubt, lies in their training, which was incredibly intense and disciplined. Of course, everyone knows they also used other things that helped in the process, something that anyone who follows bodybuilding is well aware of. But what really set these athletes apart was the almost superhuman effort they put into every training session. If you think modern bodybuilders train hard today, multiply that intensity by 2. That's how golden-era athletes approached their daily training. With extreme dedication and unparalleled discipline, they trained twice a day, once in the morning and again at night. And these sessions were far from light or routine. These training sessions were incredibly challenging, with full focus on each rep and movement, which led them to burn far more calories and build much more muscle than one might imagine. Their routine was designed to maximize results, and they never settled for anything less than the best. Throughout the day, these double training sessions ensured their bodies were constantly in a state of challenge, pushing physical limits to the extreme. And that's precisely why, when we look at the physiques of that era, we see something so unique and impressive. The bodies of the golden era weren't just the result of a diet or supplements. The real secret lay in the intensity and frequency with which they trained. Training wasn't just a part of their day. They approached each session as a battle against their own limits. This mindset turned every set and rep into another step toward physical perfection. The diet they followed, though simple, was combined with an almost relentless approach to training, where the word intensity wasn't used lightly. And so, with a solid diet and daily workouts that challenged both body and mind, these bodybuilders built physiques that are still remembered and admired today as true icons. It's no wonder the golden era is considered the pinnacle of bodybuilding, a period where discipline, effort, and intensity were taken to an entirely new level. But that's not all. These golden era bodybuilders weren't just disciplined with their training and diets, they also valued a balanced lifestyle. Of course, they had a strict meal plan and trained with extreme dedication, but they also allowed themselves to enjoy what we now call a cheat meal once a week. This moment was important to ensure their diets didn't become monotonous or overly restrictive. While some might frown at the idea of having regular, off-diet meals, the truth is, it worked for them and, in many cases, still works today. Every week, they indulged in their food cravings, without much worry, as a way to reset, not just physically, but mentally as well. This helped them maintain motivation and avoid burnout from following such a rigid diet. If we compare the meal plans of the golden era with those of today, we notice many differences. Nowadays, carbohydrate intake is much higher, and this directly impacts athletes' physiques. As a result, we see bodybuilders with much larger volumes, but also with a more bloated appearance. A clear example of this is the development of the infamous distended gut, something rarely seen in the golden era. This phenomenon is observed in many current bodybuilders, where the abdomen appears expanded, even with low levels of body fat. When we compare today's physiques with those of the golden era, the difference is obvious. Back then, physiques were more aesthetic, balanced, and symmetrical, while today's bodybuilders appear bulkier, but with less refinement in form. Many believe that this shift isn't just due to diet, but also to the use of different substances. Steroid dosages, as well as the use of hormones like GH, growth hormone, and insulin, are often pointed out as the true culprits behind this transformation. These compounds, while effective for increasing muscle mass, also contribute to the disproportionate growth of internal organs, resulting in physiques that, although massive, lose the aesthetic refinement that was the hallmark of the golden era. For many, the transition between these two periods of bodybuilding reflects more than just a simple change in diet and training. It reveals a transformation in the very philosophy of the sport, where size seems to have overtaken the pursuit of harmony and body beauty. High-protein, low-carb diets, combined with intense training, have always made a huge difference in bodybuilding. Believe it or not, modern diets may seem incredibly complex, with details like macronutrients, glycemic index, and precise meal timing needing to be adjusted. While such meticulously planned diets can bring faster progress, many believe that similar results can be achieved by adopting a simpler, more traditional approach. In practical terms, eating like a bodybuilder basically means focusing on natural foods in large quantities. Make sure to include protein in every meal, consume carbs from sources like oats, rice, and potatoes, and don't worry too much about the fats present in foods like eggs, meats, and dairy. As long as you're training with intensity, these natural fats can actually be quite beneficial. Once, a reporter asked a golden era bodybuilder about his diet, and he answered simply, steak and potatoes to gain mass, chicken and salad to cut. While this is an oversimplification, it makes total sense as a basic guideline. Eating simply and consistently was the key to the impressive physiques of that time. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you prefer the more old-school golden era style of dieting, or do you think modern approaches are more effective? Do you believe diet really makes that much of a difference? Or is the secret just using those things and training hard? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think about it. And of course, don't forget to share this video with a friend who needs to see this content. Oh, and I have a goal to hit 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I'm counting on your support to help me reach that milestone. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new content. All of this really helps spread the word about the channel and motivates me to keep bringing videos like this for you. See you next time, guys.